Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. I'm going to call this part 2 to episode 1 of my one-day landscape installation series. Somebody asked in the comments fairly early on when I put that video up the other day why I didn't put irrigation in. And I asked myself the same question after I read it. So I'm back over here to put drip irrigation into this small space. Pine straw's been raked back, and so I got access to the ground here. There's a lot of different ways that you could lay out drip irrigation in here. I'll go over some of those different ways in which it could be done. If 10 landscapers came and put drip irrigation into this bed, it would all look different with the same results. I mean, everybody would have good results from whatever design that they came up with, I'm sure, but everybody would do this in a different way, I'm sure. There's so many options and there's so many little pieces and parts and different options, different types of clocks, that kind of thing. We're running this off a spigot, and when you're running an irrigation system off a spigot like this, it's very limiting in the amount of distance that you can run away from it and the amount of water volume and water pressure, because there's a pressure regulator on this house for sure that's going to prevent a tremendous amount of pressure on the line, and then, like I say, you don't get a tremendous amount of volume through a water spigot. So but they're great for small spaces. So this is only 120 square feet. I'm going to actually terminate this over here so that he can add a little more onto this zone. And then the clock's going to have 2 more zones available to run other places in the yard and a place to keep this hose hooked right here. So I'm going to give you a close-up of the clock that I'm using and the clock that I have from my house that I showed in some videos. A few months back, I did 3 drip irrigation videos. You may want to go back and watch those. That first one, I really went into detail about all the little parts and pieces and how to hook these components together. So you may want to take a look at that video. I'll link it up here. This Orbit's clock right here is built like a tank. This is the one I showed in the video from my house, and it's just for one zone, as you can see right here, and it's got a pressure regulator attached to it there. But that's just for one zone. If you just want to, like I say, run one zone. The one I'm putting in here has the capacity to run 4 zones. I've rehooked his water hose to this one right here. This is the clock that goes with this one, and it actually attaches to the front right there. This thing is super simple to use. It just, you set the time of day, you set the days you want it to run, you set the zone. This is A, B, C, and D. And then you can run multiple water cycles in a day. So you can run up to 4 different cycles on each of A, B, C, and D. So lots and lots of different options, the time that it comes on, how long it runs. It actually has a water sensor outlet on the back of it. You can get a moisture sensor to attach to this, and it will turn the water off if it senses that it's rained for some period of time. And you can set the time on that for how long before it starts back up after a rain. You know, how fast your programming comes back to life after a rain. So nice system. This plugs in to the back here. It's got 2 AA batteries in it, and I think this one is super easy to use. I've never used it. It's a Rainwave is the brand, but there it is plugged in. So now it'll I've got it it's 8:07 8 a.m. outside right now. I've got it coming on at 8:43. From here, from your clock, I use a pressure regulator, like I showed you on the bottom of this, a pressure regulator and some sort of filter system. If you're attaching this to an underground system, this is an electric valve. You're going to see me do this at my house pretty soon. I have an underground irrigation system, and this is one of the valves that I bought for that. Hooks back into an electric clock, and then right here it has the pressure regulator and the filter built into it right there. So you might see them look like that. And then this is another version of the same thing here. This is the one I'm going to use here, and it has a filter right there and a pressure regulator built into the bottom of it. This is a hose bib fitting that attaches to a compression coupler right there, and you can just screw this onto any outlet just like that, good and snug. And then this is a solid tubing here, solid brown tubing that I use frequently, and this you use if you just need to get water from point A to point B without having any water come out of it. You want to get it all the way as far up on there as you can. And that's good and snug right there. I'm just going to drop this. I'm going to drop it down to the ground, and I'm going to attach this right at ground level. I cut these things with really anything will cut through this material, but a good pair of pruners is the easiest thing. It's something I normally have on me. You can cut it with a razor blade or something like that, but I always feel like I'm going to cut myself applying this kind of pressure to these things. Okay, so there you go. We've got it coming from A on the clock, which is a program to come on in about 30 minutes. Solid pipe running down to the ground, going through a filter, pressure regulator, and it's split right here on the bottom so I can go two different directions. So now I'm going to run the solid 1/2-inch pipe this way over to that side and back this way, and I'm going to terminate it at the end. And I use these little figure eights right here to do it. The pipe goes in one side and gets bent over right there, and that's how you terminate the end. And you can easily come back and take this piece off and extend your irrigation further out if you need to in the future. Okay, so this is the end of the bed on this side. I'm just going to cut it off. I put the figure eight through like this. I bend this over just like that, and I pull it right back up onto itself just like that. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, so now the solid pipe is attached to the timer. It drops down to the ground, attaches to that filter and pressure regulator, which can be cleaned out in the future, and then it runs left and right, and it's terminated on both ends. So right now, if I turn the water on, nothing's coming out of it, but we've moved water, you know, where we can extend it that way, and we can extend it that way if we want to in the future. Now for figuring out how we're actually going to get water onto these plants. At my house, you've seen me use two different types of drip pipe. This is a 1/2-inch drip pipe right here. It's the same as that 1/2-inch solid pipe that I just used, and it has little drippers built into the pipe. I hope you can see that. Every 18 inches. You can actually get this pipe with the dripper, the emitters built into it, 12 inches or 18 inches, and then different gallon per hour emitters. These are on 18-inch centers, and they're 1/2 gallon per hour emitters. I've linked all these things down in the bottom. All of these pieces and parts are linked down in the bottom, and they're pretty easy to snap together for the most part. You've seen me use this in my yard, and I've used it in areas where the shrubs are pretty far apart, and I have great pressure at my house, and so filling up that big 1/2-inch line and pushing it way out is not a problem. I'm actually going to use the 1/4-inch drip tube here. I use this in my vegetable garden at my house, and again, emitters are on this one. It's every 6 inches apart, and this is what I've chosen to use on this pipe. This little simple tool right here will poke holes in that 1/2-inch pipe and allow us to put a coupler. A little piece right here pops into that 1/2-inch pipe, and then it goes into the end of our 1/4-inch tubing, and then we'll run our 1/4-inch tubing through the bed with our little drip emitters that will be watering the plants. And at the end, I have little caps that go on after we cut it off the length we need it. We just put a little cap on the end of it, and that caps it off. I'll show you that right now. The other thing is water flows downhill, so I want to go behind the plants with this drip tubing. So I'm going to start right here. I'm going to poke a hole in here with this. My barbed coupler is right here. They pop in with some force applied, just like that. It's in there. And then my 1/4-inch tubing that has the drip emitters built into it, I attach that to the other end of that barb. So all of this needs to be buried in pine straw and neatened up, and you can use a sod staple here or there to hold down places that need to be held down. I'll show you here. I'm going to turn this water on and then turn A to automatic, and then we'll come down here. Water's dropping into there. It's splitting apart. Right there is where I hooked into the pipe for the drippers, and right here is where I made an error, and I just used a plug to plug in there. I put it on top. That first one that I videoed, I put it right on the top, which is kind of silly. It needs to be on the side so that it lays flat to the ground. But coming along here, you can see how this pipe, every 6 inches or so here, just drip, drip, drip. And I've got it on the high side going all the way around all of the plants that we put in this bed. It just comes around here, and then it goes on the high side of these perennials and the butterfly bush, and across the veronica and the grass, and all the way over there. And then we have our 1/2-inch main line, comes across here and runs around there, and it's terminated right there. So it'll be easy to extend this further down when this area over here gets planted. And I believe that there's plenty of pressure on this line. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on it right now. Every one of these drippers is dripping like crazy to run this 120 square feet, and then whatever's going in the rest of the way up here. And then there'll be 2 additional zones that can be run to other areas. Here's a close-up of how this looks. This pipe just dropping directly under the ground, hose still connected here. This clock will need to come off before we get a frost or a freeze in the fall, but it's super, super easy. It's just 3 hose connections right this minute. Disconnect it from there and disconnect the drip irrigation and the water hose from it and store it in the house for the winter. Super easy, runs on 2 AA batteries. Like I say, I'll have all this stuff linked in the bottom of the video, but it's all cleaned back up and put back in. It was as if I was never here. So thank you very much for watching this video, and thanks to the person who made the suggestion for putting drip irrigation in here, and thanks for all the positivity on the other video. I will probably likely in the future, if it makes sense, shoot some in time lapse and some in not, and maybe shoot 2 versions of some of them. Bed looks the same as it did when I got here this morning. It only took about an hour to install this, like I say, with lots of experience doing it. But the main thing I do is go back and watch that first video. It's really where I talk more in detail about these little parts and pieces. This video by itself would probably create some confusion without that video, or the other 2 videos where I'm installing it in my house as well. Thank you very much for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for future videos.